Buddhism stands as a remarkable phenomenon, defying the norms of conventional religion. Unlike traditional systems tethered to faith, sacred texts, and worship of a divine entity, Buddhism emerges as a path of awakening, a philosophy rooted in direct experience and self-discovery. It doesn't ask for blind belief, it invites you to see for yourself. Imagine a world where there's no God to explain existence, no doctrine to dictate your actions, and no heaven to promise eternal rewards. Does that sound daunting or liberating? Buddhism doesn't dwell on metaphysics or dogma, but instead confronts life's most profound questions. Why are we here? What is the purpose of suffering? How can we find peace in the chaos of existence? This approach resonates deeply in a modern age filled with scientific inquiry and existential searching. Just as science demands evidence and experimentation, the Buddha's teachings encourage exploration and inner observation. Here, the emphasis shifts from external salvation to internal transformation. Take the story of a man lost in a dense forest, yearning for a guide to lead him out. Most religions offer maps and legends, claiming knowledge of the terrain. Buddhism, however, hands him a lantern and teaches him to navigate the darkness himself. This lantern is awareness, a light illuminating the path from ignorance to wisdom. What makes Buddhism especially compelling today is its compatibility with the modern mindset. In a world increasingly skeptical of unverified claims and dogmatic ideologies, Buddhism offers a fresh perspective. Truth is not a doctrine to follow, but a reality to experience. Buddha's perspective on God was both radical and liberating. He argued that the concept of a divine creator stems not from divine revelation, but from human vulnerability, a projection of our deepest fears and insecurities. When life feels chaotic, when suffering feels unbearable, the idea of an all-knowing, all-powerful deity becomes a comforting refuge. But is it truth, or is it a story we tell ourselves to make existence bearable? This insight feels startlingly relevant today. In modern life, we may no longer look to a singular God for comfort, yet we continually seek external anchors. Some turn to routines, burying themselves in work, schedules, or habits to find stability in an unpredictable world. Others cling to ideologies, political, social, or spiritual, to feel part of something larger, something meaningful. The modern dependence on external validation, whether through social media likes or societal approval, is simply another iteration of the same human need for reassurance. Imagine standing in a room where all the noise suddenly ceases. That silence can be deafening, terrifying even. Buddha invites us to embrace that silence rather than fill it with invented sounds. He teaches us that the strength we seek isn't external, it lies within, in our ability to face life directly, without crutches, without excuses. Consider the story of a child learning to ride a bike. At first, they rely on training wheels, wobbling with a false sense of stability. But the moment those supports are removed, true balance begins, not through reliance, but through courage and practice. Similarly, Buddha asks us to let go of the training wheels of belief and face the reality of life unflinchingly. It is in that vulnerability, that raw acceptance, where true freedom begins. The Buddha's teachings on courage strike at the heart of human nature. He challenged us to step out from the shadows of comfort and illusion, to confront the raw and often unsettling truths of existence. It is far easier to take refuge in doctrines, to cling to familiar narratives that soothe our fears. Yet Buddha taught that true liberation begins only when we dare to face life as it is, without embellishment, without denial. In today's world, this courage manifests in the practice of mindfulness. It's not about escaping to some idealized state of calm, but about sitting with the discomfort of the present moment. When we stop running from our fears, whether they are regrets about the past, anxieties about the future, or insecurities about ourselves, we begin to see them for what they truly are, fleeting, impermanent, and ultimately powerless. Take the story of Sarah, a young professional trapped in the cycle of perfectionism. She lived by the belief that her worth was tied to her achievements. Each promotion, each accolade brought a fleeting sense of satisfaction, but the fear of failure loomed larger. Exhausted, she turned to mindfulness, not to find a quick fix, but to observe her patterns. In stillness, she confronted the truth. Her need for external validation stemmed from an internal fear of inadequacy. By facing this head-on, by breathing through the discomfort, She found the strength to let go of the belief that she had to prove her worth. With time, Sarah discovered a deeper sense of freedom, not in achievements, but in simply being. Buddha's call to courage isn't about grand acts of heroism. It's about quiet bravery in the face of the unknown. Imagine standing on the edge of a dense forest, unsure of what lies within. Most would hesitate, retreat, or wait for someone to light the way. Buddha asks us to take the first step into the darkness, trusting that with each step, the path will reveal itself. This journey into the unknown, though daunting, is the only way to uncover the truths that lie hidden within us. Desire is a force as alluring as it is relentless. The Buddha taught that its very nature is insatiable. No matter how much you achieve, no matter how many dreams you fulfill, desire always demands more. It's like chasing the horizon. No matter how fast you run, how far you travel, the horizon stays out of reach, pulling you endlessly forward, but never allowing you to arrive. Consider the story of Daniel, a successful entrepreneur who built a multi-million-dollar business from the ground up. By all outward appearances, he had it all: wealth, recognition, and influence. Yet at the height of his success, Daniel felt a hollow ache within him. Each milestone he achieved only led to the next. More expansion, more revenue, more accolades. The satisfaction was fleeting, like trying to quench thirst with salt water. One night, standing in his luxurious penthouse overlooking the city, he realized that despite his accomplishments, he felt emptier than ever. This is the trap of desire. It promises fulfillment, but delivers only temporary relief before creating new cravings. Whether it's the desire for material possessions, relationships, or even spiritual achievements, the pattern is the same. We project our happiness onto a future goal, convincing ourselves that this next thing will finally bring peace. But as the Buddha wisely observed, peace cannot be found in the pursuit of more. It lies in letting go of the pursuit altogether. Imagine sitting beneath a wish-fulfilling tree, like the mythical Kalpavriksha of ancient Indian lore. Whatever you desire appears instantly: a mansion, a feast, a life of eternal youth. At first, you revel in the abundance, but soon new desires emerge. The feast loses its flavor, the mansion feels empty, the eternal youth becomes a burden. This is the paradox of desire. It thrives on its own unfulfillment. No matter how much you obtain, the horizon of enough continues to move further away. The Buddha invites us to pause and observe this cycle, to see desire for what it truly is. The moment we stop chasing, we begin to understand that the peace we seek was never out there. It has always been within us. True freedom comes not from satisfying every craving, but from transcending the need to crave it all. Buddha's teachings illuminate a simple yet profound truth. The key to liberation lies in awareness, not in blind belief or elaborate rituals. He urged us to observe reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. This practice of seeing with clarity strips away the layers of illusion, enabling us to encounter life in its raw, unfiltered state. Imagine sitting by a clear lake. When the water is still, you can see the reflection of the sky, the trees, and even your own face with perfect clarity. But when the surface is disturbed by ripples or debris, the reflection becomes distorted, fragmented. Our minds are like that lake. When filled with distractions, judgments, and preconceived notions, our ability to perceive reality is clouded. Buddha's path teaches us to still the waters, to cultivate awareness so that we can see the world and ourselves clearly. Try this simple mindfulness exercise to begin experiencing this clarity. 1. Sit in a quiet place. Close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. 2. Focus your attention on your breath as it enters and leaves your nostrils. Notice its natural rhythm without trying to change it. 3. As thoughts arise, observe them without judgment. Imagine them as clouds drifting across the sky. Acknowledge them, but let them pass. Return your focus to your breath. 4. Extend this awareness outward. If you hear sounds, feel sensations, or notice smells, observe them without labeling or reacting. Just experience them as they are. This practice of mindfulness, though simple, holds transformative power. By bringing our attention to the present moment, we interrupt the constant stream of distractions and stories our minds create. Over time, this heightened awareness seeps into daily life. We start to notice the texture of our experiences, the taste of food, the sound of laughter, the warmth of sunlight on our skin. with a vividness that had been dulled by routine and distraction. Consider the story of Anna, a mother of two who always felt overwhelmed by the demands of her busy life. She began practicing mindfulness during her morning coffee ritual. Instead of rushing through it, she sat quietly, feeling the warmth of the mug in her hands, noticing the aroma of the coffee, and savoring each sip. This simple act of awareness transformed her mornings into a moment of peace and presence. Over time, she found herself responding to life's challenges with more patience and clarity. Buddha taught that awareness is the foundation of wisdom. By observing reality without attachment or aversion, we begin to understand the impermanence of all things. We see that our struggles, fears, and desires are like waves, rising, cresting, and falling away. And in this understanding, we discover a profound freedom, the ability to live fully in each moment, unburdened by illusions or expectations. Buddha's teaching on the self is one of the most profound and transformative aspects of his philosophy. He declared that what we call the self is nothing more than a collection of fleeting experiences, thoughts, and sensations, impermanent and ever-changing. This concept challenges our deeply ingrained belief in a fixed, independent identity. The self, he said, is like a mirage. It appears real from a distance, but when closely examined, it dissolves into emptiness. Imagine the ego as a cloud obscuring the sun. The cloud seems solid, casting shadows and creating the illusion that the light has disappeared. But the sun is always present, untouched and radiant, behind the temporary veil. Similarly, the ego, our sense of I, is a transient phenomenon. It shapes our experiences and perceptions, but it is not the ultimate reality. Liberation comes when we see through this illusion and recognize the boundless awareness that lies beyond it. Modern psychology echoes this wisdom. Concepts such as the default mode network in neuroscience reveal how our brains construct a sense of self through a constant narrative. We tell ourselves stories about who we are, what we desire, and what we fear, creating an identity that feels solid and permanent. Yet, research in mindfulness and meditation shows that when we quiet this inner narrative, our sense of self begins to dissolve. In its place, we experience a profound connection to the present moment and the world around us. Consider the story of Ravi, a man who had always defined himself by his career. He believed his achievements, titles, and accolades made him who he was. But when a sudden layoff shattered his professional identity, Ravi spiraled into despair. In his search for meaning, he turned to meditation. As he practiced observing his thoughts, he realized that his identity was nothing more than a story he had been telling himself. Stripped of his ego's illusions, Ravi discovered a deeper sense of being, one that was not tied to any external labels or roles. Buddha's insight into the illusion of the self invites us to shift our perspective. Instead of clinging to the ego and its endless demands, we can learn to rest in the awareness that transcends it. This does not mean abandoning individuality, but recognizing that the boundaries we create between self and other are artificial. Just as rivers flow into the ocean, we too are part of a vast, interconnected whole. True liberation is not about destroying the ego, but understanding its nature. It is about seeing the clouds for what they are, temporary and insubstantial, and trusting in the ever-present light of awareness. When we transcend the illusion of separation, we open ourselves to a life of greater compassion, freedom, and peace, unbound by the limitations of me and mine. In this state, as the Buddha taught, we discover our true essence, not as isolated selves, but as one with the infinite. The Buddha's message is not a command to believe, but an invitation to awaken. He did not present himself as a savior or a prophet, but as a guide, holding up a mirror to our own boundless potential. His teachings are a call to action, not to follow blindly, but to see clearly. Imagine standing before a still, clear pond. The reflection you see is not altered by embellishments or distortions. It is pure, direct, and honest. This is the essence of the Buddha's teachings. A mirror reflecting reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. Through mindfulness and self-awareness, he offers us the tools to gaze into this reflection and recognize our inherent capacity for wisdom, compassion, and liberation. Life, with all its distractions and complexities, often clouds this mirror. But through practices like mindfulness, we learn to polish the surface, revealing the clarity beneath. Begin with small steps. Notice your breath. Observe the world around you. Question the stories your mind tells. In this exploration, you will find that the path to awakening is not distant. It begins right where you are. The transformative power of this journey lies not in reaching a distant goal, but in experiencing each moment fully. Buddha's path is a reminder that awakening is not something granted to us by external forces. It is a discovery of the truth that has always been within us. It is an unfolding, a return to the luminous awareness that we often overlook in the rush of life. So, dare to question, dare to see. Each step you take on this path brings you closer to the realization that the answers you seek are not found in doctrines or beliefs. They are found in the depths of your own being. The Buddha's teachings are not the destination. They are the lantern lighting your way. What you discover is yours to keep, yours to live, and yours to share with the world.